Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. My name is Sean Shaw, and this is Vanguards of Democracy. Today, I have the luxury of hosting two guests that I get to call close personal friends. The first I'd like to introduce you to, and someone I know you've heard of, is my longtime friend, Sharif. He is my fraternity brother, and he is the bossless of the local Pi Iota chapter of Omega Psi Phi. He's also here to deliver some guidance on how to make home ownership and financing feel more like a reward and less like a ball and chain. But first, I'm joined by none other than Congressman Charlie Crist, former Governor Charlie Crist, former Attorney General Charlie Crist, former a lot of things Charlie Crist, to shed a little light on what it's like to live a life devoted to Florida politics at its highest level. And as you all know, he's running for governor right now as well. Stick around. You will not want to miss this episode. All right, everybody, welcome to this special segment of Vanguards of Democracy, and I'm here with my good friend, former governor and current Congressman Charlie Crist. Thank you for being on, Governor. I really appreciate you making the time. I see you driving around South Florida there, so I know it's tough. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, Sean. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. We're just, you're right, we're in South Florida. We're headed to the Miami airport, and after that, on the way to Jacksonville.
Running for statewide office is a lot of what you're doing right now, being on the phone, doing stuff while you're in the car, and then flying to another city. So I appreciate you making time. And, you know, when I endorsed you, Governor, I told a story, and I just want to tell it on this podcast here, of one of the things that I remember most about you, and that was at the investiture of the last African-American member of the Florida Supreme Court, and that was Justice James Perry. You were there. You were the governor at the time, and you were a Republican governor at the time. You took a lot of heat for nominating Justice Perry to the court. And my father and I were both in the audience there when you spoke about what it meant to appoint someone like Justice Perry, what justice meant, and how important judicial selections were to you. And I just, that was a personal story that stuck with me. And sometimes you endorse people for different reasons, and sometimes you have personal connections and different things, but that was just a personal matter. And one of the reasons that I've always been close to you and always been a fan of yours was that day. And I just want to tell you that. And I know you have a commitment to get at least one black person on the Florida Supreme Court.
Well, wouldn't that be refreshing? I mean, you know, it's amazing to me that we don't have an African-American on the court right now, the Supreme Court, and that's an injustice. And what I've been talking about this week is about justice for all, and that means all people. You know, whether you're a minority or whatever, you know, we're all children of God. We all deserve to be represented. We deserve to be represented well, and that's not happening in Tallahassee today, as you and I both know. And you know it probably more than most people, Sean, because you come from a family who's dedicated their entire being to justice. Your father being a member of the Florida Supreme Court, a Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court. It's great lineage, it's great heritage, and it's in your DNA. So I know you know it, you appreciate it. And that's why your endorsement has meant so very much to me, Sean. I'll never forget it. And I'm eternally grateful to you, sir.
No, I appreciate that, Governor. I want to talk about actually your journey, your path to how we got here, because you were a quarterback for a certain team that I'm going to give you a chance to talk about. But I want to know how you got into politics and your journey to public office, because quite frankly, I think that you have held almost every statewide office here in the state of Florida, several offices that I want to hold one day. So I know that it's been a path.
I want you to hold them.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But talk about your journey into politics and how you got there.
Well, that's a great question. It started pretty young, actually. You know, my father practiced medicine in St. Pete for, 55 years as a family doctor. And, you know, when I was a kid, 9 years old, he decided to run for the school board, which frankly, I think is probably the most important political office in our country.
Especially
now
days.
In Florida.
Uh-huh.
Oh, my God. You know, with what they're having to deal with the governor and merely trying to keep kids safe and our teachers safe. But at any rate, so Dad ran for the school board. It was, believe it or not, 1966. I'm 9 years old when he starts his campaign. And I remember on a Saturday, he hadn't been campaigning overtly that much. I mean, he was busy doing house calls and things that doctors do. And so the local chairman of the party encouraged him to get out and do some campaigning. And so I remember one Saturday morning, he came up to me, and, my nickname when I was a kid was Arlie. And he called me Arlie. My older sister, Margaret, couldn't pronounce the CH. And he goes, Arlie, I got to go to this picnic. It's a little fish fry on Lake McGorry in South St. Pete, campaigning for school board. Why don't we go over and see what's going on? And you're welcome to come if you want. I said, sure, Dad, I'd love to. So I went with him. The two of us just went together, and we get there, and there's picnic tables around the lake, right? It's a beautiful Saturday morning. And he gave me a stack of his cards, for the campaign. He says, why don't you go just table to table and introduce yourself and ask people to vote for your dad? And, we'll do that for a while, have a little fish, and then we'll go back home. I said, great. So I did that. And I just enjoyed chatting with people, and they were very nice to me. People are usually pretty nice to kids anyway. And, just asked them, please vote for my father or consider doing so. And that's when I got bit with it. I mean, I just love interacting with people like you do, Sean, and hearing from them and listening to what their story is. Everybody's got a story if you're just willing to listen. And that's when it started. And then all through school, I was involved in student government. And here I am today running for governor of Florida. I mean, it's been a real blessing. It's been a great journey.
I mean, we're in rarefied territory here. We're talking to someone who has been governor and is running for governor again, albeit from different parties. But quite frankly, even as a Republican, you showed me everything I needed to see to be able to support you today. But I would be interested to hear what's your greatest achievement? What are you most proud of as governor when you were in the rotunda of the Capitol there? What are you most proud of?
Well, many things, but I think the thing that stands out to me, honestly, was being able to bring about automatic restoration of rights of returning citizens. And I just thought that was so fundamental to, the tenet of forgiveness and trying to do what's right for people. And, who among us doesn't deserve a second chance? And that's why I'm so proud that we were able to get 155,000 returning citizens their rights restored, not only to vote, but to hold, productive jobs, be able to put food on their table, gain respect and decency, and, to be re-welcomed into society. I think that has to really stand out as number one for me.
And particularly in light of the fact that in 2018, 60+% of Florida citizens agreed with you and voted to put that in the Constitution, and then the legislature did what they normally do and kind of eviscerated the goodwill of the people. But I want to talk about some kind of wallet issues too, because another thing that drew me to you was our mutual distaste for property insurance companies. And another story I remember is I was the insurance consumer advocate under Alex Sink, and my first day on the job, State Farm announced that they were leaving Florida, and the word we got from your office was, good, let them go. And quite frankly, that was the right thing to do. But that's a hell of a statement for the governor to make to the biggest insurance company, but it was the right one to do. And it's one that is relevant again because of the high property insurance rates that are poking their head out again. And Democrats haven't been in power in a long time. And so the last 20 years, it ain't nothing. We don't have ownership of any of this. So talk a little bit about these insurance rates and how that became such an issue for you, particularly when you were governor.
Well, it became a huge issue because, as you correctly pointed out, the property insurance rates are going through the roof, and they are doing that right now. I hear stories all across Florida how I just had my property insurance canceled. They, especially people that live near the water, and it's atrocious. It's awful. But that's exactly what was happening in 2006 when I was running for governor. But in the lead up to it, when I was attorney general, we saw that starting to creep in, and nobody was standing up to the insurance companies. And so you're right. Right after I got elected governor, State Farm did announce, we're going to leave the state. I said, good riddance. Who needs you here? All you're doing is gouging our people anyway. We want people who want to do business in Florida. We're a huge state, a giant market. Any insurance company who will treat people fairly is going to make a boatload of money anyway. They just got a little too greedy. And you have to be able to stand up and stand out. And when somebody's doing that to the people you're supposed to represent as a public servant, hopefully with a servant's heart, that you do the right thing. And it was an honor working with you and CFO Alex Sink to make sure that we followed through on that. the very first thing I announced after I got sworn in is we're going to have a special session on property insurance. And we did it, and we worked Democrats, Republicans together, because the property insurance companies weren't identifying with one party or another. They were gouging from everybody. And so we had a unified effort to change the system, lowered property better off for it. And you and I and CFO Alex Sink did it together, and I'll never be able to thank you enough for that.
No, we thank you. I know Alex thanks you too, and those were great times back then. I want to talk about, you told a story on a Zoom I was on, and I want, if you don't mind, you to tell that story again, because it was very interesting, but it was indicative of what kind of heart you have. And it's the story of your conversion, essentially, from a Republican to an independent to a Democrat, and that interaction with President Obama at the time. Can you tell that story? I had never heard it told from your point of view before, and it was amazing and touching to hear that.
I'm happy to, Sean. And so, you know, a lot of the conversion that I experienced came from my relationship with President Obama. And I remember it was late 08, early 09. We were in the throes of the Great Recession, which was the opposite of great. It was horrific. Florida was we were ground zero for the housing crash in our country. And so I'm in my office in Tallahassee as governor. I'm a Republican at the time. My staff comes into my office and says, this is February of 09. The White House has called. They wanted to know if you'd be willing to greet President Obama when he comes to Fort Myers next week to talk about the Recovery Act, stimulus, if you will, and trying to help people get through this difficult economic time. And I said, sure, I'll go. And then they looked at me and they said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, why do you ask? And they said, well, you know, he's a Democrat. I said, he is the president of the United States of America, and he is coming here to help Florida and help our country to get through a difficult time with this Recovery Act. I'm absolutely going. So please let him know I'll be there next week. So I went down to Fort Myers. He was coming into the convention center right on the Caloosahatchee River. And so I'm already there before he gets there. I'm in sort of this garage area of the convention center downstairs. And, you know, they open the garage door area and in comes the beast, you know, the big black Cadillac that he's in. He's in the back seat. And I think Congressman Wexler, Robert Wexler, who I served in the state Senate with, was in the back seat with him. And so the president signals to me to come, you know, visit with him. So I go to the back seat of the car. He opens the door. Congressman Wexler gets out the other side. The president slides over. I'm sitting next to him. And so he said, close the door. I just want to talk to you for a minute, if you don't mind. I said, of course, Mr. President. And he says, number one, Charlie, thanks for coming. I really appreciate you being here today. It says a lot and it means a lot. And I said, well, I'm honored to be here. You know, this for me is a no-brainer. He goes, well, I want you to know this. You're going to take a lot of grief for being here today. And I said, well, I don't know about it. He goes, Charlie, you're going to take a lot of grief for being here today. So thank you. I said, I told you I'm happy to be here. He said, but since you did say yes, and since you are here, would you mind introducing me to the folks here today? And it was really a rally at that convention center for the Recovery Act. And I said, no, that'd be an honor as well. He goes, okay, well, let's keep it simple. You see those steps over there? And I said, yes, sir. He goes, we'll get out of the car, go up those steps. That's going to lead right into the auditorium. And he said, and be prepared, it's going to be loud. And I said, well, I'm sure it will be. He goes, no, Charlie, these are my people. It's going to be loud. I said, yes, sir. Okay, I'll be prepared. So he goes, you just walk up to the podium, say whatever's on your heart about me, about the Recovery Act. I'll come up, do my thing, and that'll be it. Is that all right? I said, absolutely, Commander-in-Chief. That's fine with me. So we did that. We went up the stairs. I walked up to the podium, Sean, and gave what I thought was a proper introduction for a president. And I concluded by saying, you know, let's please give a warm welcome for the President of the United States, Barack Obama. And, you know, the crowd goes crazy. He comes up to the podium. He shakes my hand. And then he embraced me. And I hugged him back. And somebody took a picture of that. And that was pretty much the end of me as a Republican. And I think that happened for several reasons. The reaction I got, which the president had predicted, Sean, he was absolutely spot on correct. Right. You know, people were like, why were you doing that? You know, you don't have to do that kind of thing. And, you know, I saw that people weren't just upset in my former party, and I don't want to paint too broad a brush, many in my former party, not all, but enough. It wasn't just because I was with a Democratic president. It was also because I was with the first Black president. Mm-hmm. And that broke my heart. And it's not how I was raised by my mother and my father. And, so I thought, this is not where I belong. This party has left me. It's left my heart and my soul and my upbringing. And, my upbringing in church about doing unto others as you would have done unto you, treating other people with respect and decency. I mean, after all, we're all children of God. And that's really the story of my conversion. And I saw the light on the road to Damascus, on the road to Fort Myers.
I see. That's an amazing story, and it's a personal one, and I know it's personal to you. And it also illustrates the beginning of our descent, I think, into where we are now in our politics. I mean, I think that was just the very beginning of us starting to see of how just people were retreating to their own corners, and we no longer wanted to talk to each other, and your team is wrong and my team is right, and these racial divisions, and that was the rise of the Tea Party, and we thought the Tea Party was the most extreme, and Tea Party is now moderate compared to kind of what's going on in the Republican Party now. But that embrace, your embrace of the president, really is what I started, at least in my mind, a lot of kind of the descent into, unfortunately, where we are now. And it's another reason that I think you are uniquely positioned to be not only electorally the best person to be governor, but just in terms of empathy, sympathy, the right person to be governor at this particular time in our state's history, given how divided we are.
Oh, bless you. I appreciate that, Sean. That's very kind of you to say. But we are in difficult times right now. And, we're dealing with a governor, sadly, who doesn't seem to get it. And the tip of the spear is how he's reacted to COVID or not reacted. I mean, not encouraging people to get the vaccine, not encouraging people to wear masks or social distancing. Just the three common sense things you can do in order to crush the virus. And I'm delighted that the numbers are going back down now, but it sure ain't because of him. It's because of what's happened in the leadership of the president of the United States, Joe Biden, encouraging people to get vaccines, taking a photograph of himself getting a booster. I did the same thing. I understand that the governor got a vaccine. He does it in private. He does it secretly. We need an advocate at the state level, the leader of our state, of just doing the right thing. These aren't ideological debates. These are not right versus left, Sean. These things are right versus wrong, and it's costing lives. I mean, now in Florida, we're up to about 57,000 of our fellow Floridians that have passed from this virus. That's almost as many people as died in the Vietnam War. I mean, it's unbelievable. And we have been, for a couple of months now, number one in hospitalizations, number one in infections, and sadly, number one in death. And it doesn't have to be this way. If we just have a leader, a governor who utilizes common sense, listens to healthcare experts like Dr. Fauci instead of mocking the guy, we'd be in a much better place. And it's not going to be that hard to do that. It's just utilizing common sense and being humble enough to listen to others who are experts.
Humility is the thing that strikes me as the most absent in what we're dealing with now at a statewide level. They've been in power so long that kind of they have forgotten. It's one thing to disagree policy-wise. We can all have those disagreements. That's what our democracy is built on. But the lack of humility and the bullying and the telling local governments what they're not allowed to do and what they are allowed to do, and hamstringing school boards and putting Mayor Demings on a list of people who they believe are breaking the law. God, I mean, it's a lot. And as we have our last few minutes here, kind of just give your vision of your governor's campaign and what you see Florida under the second iteration of a Crist administration.
Well, Crist 2.0 is going to be more of what it was before. And this week's a good example of it, I think, Sean. We're touring the state, meeting with minorities all over Florida. As I said, I just finished a meeting in North Miami with a group of Haitian leaders, going to be going to Jacksonville this afternoon, followed up by a trip to Pensacola, talking about justice for all and making sure that we have a justice system that respects all. you know this better than anyone, but for far too long, disproportionately, people of color, black and brown people have not been treated well by our criminal justice system. We've got to fix that. We've got to make sure that we're focused on doing things that restore people, that restore their rights, give them the opportunity, as I had the privilege to do, and we talked about earlier, getting 155,000, former felons re-entering citizens, giving them the opportunity to get their lives back, and the opportunity to be whole again. As I said, who doesn't deserve second chances? And it's time for that to come again. And so that's what this campaign is all about. It's doing the right thing, respecting our teachers and our public education system, funding it appropriately instead of 47th in the country, making sure that, when you come to prescription drugs, they're not the most expensive in the world, that we get reduced prices, making sure that we expand Medicaid, giving 800,000 of our fellow Floridians health care that they deserve just by the governor saying yes. These things are not that hard to do, but you got to be motivated to do what's right for your fellow man and your fellow woman. That's what the Crist administration will do. And I know it will do it with your help, Sean. And God bless you for having me on today.
No, of course.
I'm deeply grateful.
No,
sir.
I appreciate you being on, and thank you. And keep your travels. Tell Duval County, my birth county, I said hi, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, Governor.
I will do so.
All
God
right.
bless you, Sean. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, thank you. We're here with my next segment. And listen, the next segment, I ain't got no questions. I don't have no plan. We're just here with my good friend, and that's Al Sharif. Al Sharif is one of the many things. He is the local bossalist for the Pi Iota chapter of Omega Psi Phi. That's why we got our frat stuff on. But Al's a personal friend of mine. I've known Al for 20 plus years.
That's
and
it.
He's just, he's my man. So Al, I appreciate you coming in today.
That's it.
Might be longer than that. But I appreciate Al. I think we met my sophomore year at Princeton or freshman year?
Freshman.
My freshman year at Princeton. And I remember, this is before I was a member of Omega Psi Phi, we went to Morgan State homecoming. You remember that?
That would be one.
We're not going to talk anymore about it. But we went to Morgan State homecoming, and it was a fascinating experience. But that's when I first met Al, and I've known him ever since. He's been a good friend of mine. He's just a good guy, and we've always been close, man. I appreciate you coming in today.
I appreciate you having me. I think you forgot the Lincoln trip.
Well, listen, okay, first of all, let's talk about what we're not going to talk about.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about what we are going to talk about. If I don't bring it up, we ain't talking about it.
I think I'm older.
Al is trying to get me canceled within the first couple months of this podcast. But no, we've just known each other. We've been through a lot. And obviously, Al was there in my journey to become a member of this fraternity. And I'll always love him for that. And Al is also from, spent a lot of time. Didn't you graduate from Bethune?
Graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
There we go. And so, Al's got the Florida touch. Al, I just want to talk about, first of all, you are the local president of the Pi Iota chapter here of Omega Psi Phi, which essentially means you're the head of the local chapter of the fraternity. And I just want to know what is your vision for what the fraternity is going to do locally, has done locally. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of yours, and I've seen us do some new things and take on some new challenges than we have before. Tell me your vision and kind of how your leadership, no, don't talk about your leadership style, never mind. Talk about your vision for the fraternity locally and what the kind of things we do and stuff like that.
I think we might suspend you first, but more importantly is giving back. I think Omega's about service, and that's been the core principles of it. You've been a good servant in the community. I remember your various races, even ascending. You made us proud. So
I appreciate that.
I'm glad to see your curly hair, and we're gonna laugh a little bit, because we're here. We're not gonna be too serious.
You're gonna have some abilities to say some things no one else will, but
absolutely,
we'll give you that. We'll give you that freedom, and I know because I participated in our mentor program over at Just Elementary. I know that we've got the cleanup going on. Talk about some of those individual programs, the blood drive, and all those good things.
So I believe Brother Shaka Jasper has been the chair of our social action under the leadership of our Vice Bossler, Shakoy Blunt. Some of the things that's going on is, community engagement. We're trying to get out there, utilizing platforms as this, letting our family, our village know that we're here to serve. Omega's built on service. If you think about the rich history in Tampa alone, you're part of the Bar Association named after one of the brothers from Edgecombe Bar
George
Association, which is also the courthouse. Brothers like Delano Stewart, G.V. Stewart, Dr. Shannon, former board member of the Aquarium, also a board member of TOBA. TOBA being founded by Jetty B, the Saturday Morning Breakfast Group, being founded by one of the brothers as well. As you go through it all, Omega's imprint's definitely deep and runs purple in Tampa. We'll go all the way back to the Riverwalk, looking at Martin Luther King's mentor. So from an educational perspective, I think a lot of people in the community aren't aware of some of the touches from day to day. You got Pastor Gallen, several different pastors in the market as well.
Pastor who?
Gallen.
Talk about the one that calls up at this show all the time, ranting and raving?
Absolutely. You talk about him. We're not going to talk about the other pastors. We do have at least 6 or 7.
Yeah,
just
my pastor. Brother
Banks.
Dr. Bartholomew Banks, yeah.
Brother Banks. We've got, you got the brothers coming out of University of South Florida. I was fortunate to pledge at Bethune-Cookman. You were fortunate to hang out with me while you were at Princeton. So, long-standing. We've got some young guys that are doing well. And giving back, I think mentoring is a key component. Looking forward to building that bridge, influencing some of the young people that look like us to get an opportunity. Because each of us sitting here today, we're not sitting here just based on ourselves. It's based on the work that other people put in before we did.
Mentoring is the one that sticks out to me the most because I think it is the most impactful, and people can disagree, but the impact that a black man has, a black professional man has on a young black child, particularly a young black male child, is immeasurable. And, my friends and I, those of us that are whatever, if you think we're successful, particularly all of us that came from Tallahassee, there's a group of us, and every one of us, had a father figure there in the household, and that's extremely rare. And so for an organization such as ours that's made up of college-educated black men, I think it is imperative that we do this mentoring thing and that we show that there's a doctor here that you can be, there's a lawyer here, there's an accountant, there's an architect, there's a mortgage loan officer, there's all these types of things that you can actually attain. That's not just Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, Jordan, and that kind of thing, right? Like you need to be able to go to class and look in the front of class, and someone that's talking to you is someone that is doing something that you can achieve through education and through work and through wanting it. And I think that's really important. And so I've always tried to help Brother Jasper in that mentoring program because it's so important.
Well, keeping the common touch is something we all learned. We walk with kings, but I mean, it's natural for us. You came out of an environment that's simple. I mean, you were fortunate to have your father. My father wasn't around, but there was a man that stepped into my life at a certain point that was a buddy's dad. Didn't even know about the funny mark on his arm. And he was an Omega man, still is. And when you think about stuff like that, and you think about the impacts, it's not what you do today, it's what you see 15, 20 years downstream. I look at you. Funny as said, I mean, a lot of people see Sean at Sean's current position. I go back to you being that young freshman, following us, right? Not even knowing anything about, hey, what's going on in this world. And you've evolved, and now it's an opportunity. Not too many of our kids get an opportunity to say, hey, I've touched somebody who went to Princeton, Harvard, whatever institution, Bethune, whatever. But because you've made it, it's your job and your duty, and I'm really, really thrilled to see you giving back. And, all seriousness, keep on keeping.
Well, that's what my father taught me. And, he was the civil rights legend, and he did what he did. But the one of the lessons he imparted on me was, you didn't grow up on third base. Like a lot of people worked hard, and my dad always told me I didn't have the opportunity to go to Princeton. I didn't have the opportunity to go to Florida for law school. And so with those opportunities come responsibilities, and one of them is to give back. And so that has always meant something to me. And it's quite frankly why I got into politics, and why I didn't go.
I thought you were crazy.
Well, that too. Well, you see, I'm not in it now, tangentially, but it's why I got into politics. It's why I'm drawn to it. It is the giving back to the community part of it, and particularly the mentoring. Again, I just think if you are a black man, particularly that's college educated around here, you need to be doing some sort of mentoring. And I can't say that strongly enough.
And I think a lot of times in our community, we focus just on the black man perspective. I've got 2 daughters.
No, you're right.
And so I look at the overall village as a whole continually. Right. Yes, we have to influence those young men. I think that's critical, but we also have to show something positive to the young sisters as well.
No, I agree.
I mean,
the image. You're right. The image of the black man in American society is one that also is problematic and that we need to address. You're exactly correct. You're exactly correct. What I know, we've got some things coming up. We've got some Founders Ball. I mean, the NAACP. By the time this show airs, the NAACP banquet would have already happened. But our fraternity brother, the CEO of the National NAACP, Derek Johnson, is going to come down, and we're going to see him on Friday at the NAACP Gala. Shout out to Yvette Lewis, the president of the Hillsborough County chapter, for being able to get the national president down. But I know we've got some things coming up, Founders Ball and some events we've had. Talk about those a little bit.
Well, we'll talk a bit about, I guess, what we've done in this month of October as a whole. So Pi Iota has been here for 75 years, a pillar in this community. The chapter really started, when you think about it, think about the journey. I'm going to just walk you back a little bit. Everything from, let's say, Naples all the way up through Ocala and all those parts was all Pi Iota one time. As more brothers evolved, several different chapters have come out. We've got the chapter in Lakeland, which is Upsilon Xi. You've got St. Pete. You've got a chapter at the base here in Tampa. You've got us. Of course, we also have the undergrads. So as you think about that evolution and you say, hey, how do these guys do it? And one of the things we sit and we talk about internally is the mission. The mission is about uplift, right? So if we uplift our community, that means we have to be engaged. The beauty about Qs, they think we're wild and crazy, so we can definitely get in the hood. Right. But we also have the common sense to be able to have a conversation in the boardroom.
Everybody knows what these frat colors mean.
That's
no matter where you walk. Hey, no matter where you walk.
Hey, you see the Jordans, you see that, it's funny because, I think at times, and it's funny, you think about when we were studying to become members, we think about the Carter G. Woodsons, we think about the Michael Jordan. Oh, man, that's going to be my frat brother. But now people are saying, Sean Shaw's going to be my frat brother.
Right, well.
That's incredible. I think about my young guy, Kelvin Ampofo, that as a district representative, which is basically the whole area from New York to like Maryland, and you pledging up there and thinking about, we pledged this guy a Bethune, and nobody thought about us at that point being where we are, but it's the work. So enjoying that work, feasting in the labor, but really focusing on the community and figuring out how to uplift. We have differences. And we have different approaches in how we ascertain whatever that success may be as you look at success. And, just really proud and humbled to sit here, although I'd rather you sit in this seat than me.
No, it's the Sean Shaw Show. Vanguards of Democracy. It ain't the Sharif show. Hey. One day, brother.
No, I don't need a show.
I'll tell you what is funny. I was wearing a frat pin, and I went to go meet Charlie Crist, and he looked at the frat pin. He says, "That's a Mega Sci-Fi." He tried to throw it to hooks.
All Q dogs.
I was like, man, this is universal recognition. All right, let's move to the other part of your repertoire, and that is your professional kind of responsibilities, and that is as a mortgage loan officer, correct? What does that mean? What do you do?
Well, my title...
Unless you like Tommy and Martin. Finally tell me what it is you do, brother.
I hang out. Actually, my title is VP of Mortgage Lending with Guaranteed Rate. I've been blessed and humbled to build a team and working on building a team to help serve our community a little bit better. Guaranteed Rate is the second largest mortgage company nationally. You may see some of the commercials, all those UFC fights and everything else. But it's impactful when you start thinking about how do we grow wealth in our community.
Home ownership.
That
is the cornerstone of building wealth.
You've heard me fight this fight for many years, pre your campaign, post your campaign.
You were mad that this wasn't one of the cornerstone issues. I was like, man, I got to talk about crime and other stuff, man. But you've always been big on this.
If you build a base, and it's a solid base, you're going to see success. And I think when you think about the term gentrification, it's okay to gentrify, but inclusivity is more critical. So
Now, a young person seeking a mortgage, maybe even their first mortgage, what are some of the things that might keep them from getting what they want, whether that's the rate they want or the amount they want? Are there decisions that you can make at a young age that can mess you up when you're going to get that mortgage?
absolutely, I think one of the things is being consistent, right? So if you think about it, a lot of people don't know you go to trade school. Forget college, just go trade school. That's a 2-year window. So you've got to have a job that shows consistency. In today's world, they talk about ability to repay. That's really the baseline of most underwriters as we see it. Savings. If you don't have a job, how are you supposed to pay the bills? Lenders want to lend money, but it's just educating people. And I think the thing that stops most people from buying homes is themselves.
Yeah.
They just don't know. Like literally take the time to just have a conversation.
If I paid $1,000 in rent a month for an apartment, the house you could get for $1,000 a month
Where you find
is
it
so
at?
much better.
Where you finding that at?
Okay, $2,000, whatever the rent is.
1,200, 13.
$1,200, whatever.
Go
I'm
ahead.
just saying, whatever you're paying in rent, if you translated that to the same amount of, mortgage payment, you'd have so much better, and you'd have ownership. There's no reason not to go through the process to own it.
Well, don't just focus on ownership. Rent is rent, right? But think about equity. So we don't even talk about what equity is. So equity is that savings. So you're paying money to save. And I think if you know you're going to save, you'll probably pay yourself even more. I think go back to, again, fundamentally, I think we get to a certain point where we're talking big, but go back to the simple things. You're still going to pay a rent. Everybody knows somebody has to pay the bills to cover their head. So if you say you had a $1,200 mortgage or rent, that's maybe a $200,000 house. Now, circle it back and say, hey, the impacts of it. If I bought a house 5 years ago for $200,000, in today's market, that same house may be $260,000. That's $60,000 in the bank, paying the same rent. So how do you go back and educate people? And I had an interesting call yesterday from a young lady, and she said, it's now the time to buy. I said, if you're not in the game, you can't win. And simply, we got to create an environment for more winners.
How do I find out what my house is worth now, or what kind of equity I can deal with right now? How do I find that out?
Well, typically, they'll use a thing called an appraiser. That's a separate person.
So you're saying I can't go on Zillow?
You can go on Zillow. Zillow's going to give you a baseline, but it's not really capturing all the transactions that have just occurred. Your agent, whoever it was that helped you buy the house, if they're still around, just reach out to them. That's one simple way. Another way you could, reach out to somebody like myself, and then we'll start walking you through the process.
What you alluded to this, but the market is really hot right now. What are the benefits of refinancing your home, and under what circumstances should you refinance your home?
Well, under a whole lot of circumstances. If rates are low, and we're all-time low periods, right? As long as we're going through all these things in the world, the rates are going to stay low for the most part. At least that's what I anticipate. It may be a lower payment. The debt may be less. So you're going to refinance it with a lower payment less. You can also look at cutting the time on the overall debt. That's another major, I may have had a 30-year mortgage, and now I can pay the same amount I'm paying and have a 15-year mortgage, right? And in some cases, it may be an opportunity for you to leverage. So let's think about it. Everybody in our family may not have the right credit, but they're good people that could pay something. You may be in a position to buy an investment property that's also going to accrue equity. So that's why it's so critical for folks to get into the game.
And what I assume is, if I'm thinking about all these kind of concerns and questions, that I go to someone like you so that you can kind of help me through the process as to whether I'm in the right situation to refinance right now. You're the one to help me make that decision.
Right here in the Tampa market, we're talking Tampa, but we're national, right? So I've got Shaka Jasper, I've got Michelle Moore. Those are two licensed professionals here in the market. I'm here. I've got a great team. We just want to educate. That's it.
I mean, considering what the market is now, and we're getting close to wrap up though, but considering what the market is now, do you think first time home buyers, people looking to purchase their first home, ought to be looking at that now, or should they take some time and maybe wait for the market to cool off a little bit?
Or what are you waiting for? I mean,
That's what I'm
ultimate.
asking.
Well, I mean, again, what are you waiting for? If you're not in the game, you have no opportunity to
And rates
play.
are low.
You have no opportunity to play. I mean, one of the things that you've heard me battle throughout with my career is figuring out how we get the equality and assistance. In certain cases, people arbitrarily put rules in place to impede what we think is in the best interest of the majority, and not necessarily, it doesn't come to fruition. So we struggle with those.
And what do you think the future of the housing market is? I mean, we know where it is now. Do you see any even hotter, or you see it cooling off a little bit in the future? What do you see?
I'll give you I'll give you this as an answer. There was a housing crash, and we superseded where we were before. So anytime it goes down, it's still going to go up. So the future is, I think, positive. There isn't enough inventory. There are more babies being born, so you got to have more places. Dirt is critical. I mean, if you own the dirt, you're winning. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Oh, I hear you, brother. All right, I want to get back to Omega stuff here because by the time this airs, we are going to be right up on the Founders Banquet. And so, talk a little bit about if you know the details, when it is, where it is, what we're going to be celebrating, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I know? You guys just beat me up last night. Founders Day, it's a weekend. We're going to make a weekend out of it. So this year, we're going to have a birthday bash that's going to be on the 12th of November, followed by a golf tournament at Rogers Park, which is the oldest historical, black course here in Tampa. And last but not least, we're going to have a ball, which is a gala that if you're an elected official, school board and all, I look forward to having you. By the way, in scholarship, we had a call yesterday where I think we're targeting about $45,000 outlay this year in scholarship, and we need the community's help and support. I mean, when we have those events, it's not coming in my pocket, it's not coming in your pocket. Those are directly related to our scholarship drives, so it's 100% through our foundation.
Well, as much as you call me, it's coming out of my pocket. But so the banquet is November 13th.
Should I talk about that?
The banquet is November 13th, I think, at the Embassy Suites.
Embassy Suites, right
USF.
by University of South Florida.
And it's going to be that 6 o'clock time area, and that is where everybody in the community, we would ask you to come out. You can get your tickets online. We'll tell you more about that, but that's the annual Founders Day banquet where you will want to come and hear the awards being given out, see the scholarship recipients that
Turkey
are going to be
giveaways.
super impressive, and it's really impressive what we do, and it's a good showcase of what Omega is doing and what's possible when we put our mind to it. So, what else you got? Tell me kind of. I want to ask you this because we're wrapping up to the end, but I want to ask you this question: because as curmudgeonly as you are, who inspires you? Who is your inspiration? Who is somebody that you look to either in the past or right now that inspires you, that keeps you moving?
I think all of you. I mean, literally every day I get up, I'm blessed. As you know, last year in September, I was in a bad car crash. And, if it wasn't for the grace, my mother's prayers, friends and family, my daughter and I wouldn't possibly be here. Then you think about COVID and you think about, I think it goes back to your root, your foundation. Who inspires me? I think, every day I get up, I see different inspirations. I mean, but more importantly, it's the work. I think the work is, Omega men are wired internally. What's funny is I think the rest of the world sees us as the ultimate extroverts, but in the back rooms and the alleys, you kind of think in the discussions, you're like, all of these guys are pure introverts, right? When you talk about the greatest judge of who you are, more so as you looking at yourself. I mean, what inspires me is my kids, my family, my community, seeing progress. Look, my mother's a first generation coming to America. My great grandmother was a slave here. I think about the people in my family, family members that were presidents of countries. So you kind of know that type of stuff from a background perspective. Seeing how they were as true civil rights pillars. overseas and over here. Growing up here, growing up in the D.C. area and coming to school in Florida, Florida's welcomed me. I mean, what inspires me is my inspiration is daily from the Most High, and I don't take that lightly each and every day. We know we still have work to do. We continue to do the work, and hopefully, when it's all said and done, we did a good job.
Well, brother, I appreciate that, and we're going to wrap up on that. And you are exactly what we all aspire to be. You are someone that I would call a bridge builder, and I know we know that is, but that's you, brother. That's you. You're a bridge builder. You are somebody that reaches back and pulls people up, and you are also one of the brothers that is on the phone all the time, calling, see how people doing and what's going on, and that's why you are that's why you're our leader right now locally. So I want to thank you for being on, and I appreciate that I can still run for political office because you didn't say anything too bad, and I thank you for being on today. We appreciate it.
Anybody looking to get him, just call me.
Vanguards of Democracy is brought to you by Vanguard Attorneys, a Florida personal injury law firm located in Ybor City that's been in practice for over 10 years. The Vanguard Attorneys team is led by myself, Senator Arthenia Joyner, Karina Perez Illich, and Sylvia Brett. If you've been injured and want to make sure you get the best recovery possible, call Vanguard Attorneys. Naturally, you never pay a dime unless you win, but you can get that from any attorney. What makes Vanguard different is our intense commitment to getting you justice and getting it fast. If you've been in an accident, call us at Vanguard Attorneys, 813-471-4444. Call us for a free consultation. As always, you can listen live on WTMP 1150 AM in Hillsborough, 97.5 FM in Pinellas, live on WTMP, and also on AM 1150 WTMP.com on your computer, or you can download the app or the TuneIn app on your cell phone. Remember, this show is pre-recorded. It is on YouTube. Just search for Vanguards of Democracy. But because it's pre-recorded, that means I won't be able to take any questions from the studio. But don't worry. We will be in the studio very soon so that I can take questions from my listeners, and they can't wait to get there. Thank you.